This is Trevenchy, and we are here with a Big 12 breakdown. Conference games are beginning for pretty much everyone in the conference besides two opponents, the TCU and Iowa State. They get another week to luck out, stay away from conference play a bit. Iowa State surprisingly hasn't played a single Big 12 opponent yet. Cannot wait to see how they will prove themselves. I think right now a lot of people are overrating them just because they beat Iowa. But we're here again just breaking down the opponents, the quality of the matchup, how even these teams are going to play against each other, and pretty much just going over the slate that's to host on Saturday. So we start off the morning straight off 9 a.m. noon Eastern time. And we have two really good games that might be slept on by people. So we have Cincinnati hosting Houston, and then we have West Virginia hosting Kansas. The thing about these games is a lot of people completely deflate these Big 12 opponents because they had really bad out of conference losses. A Houston team looked completely terrible against UNLV in week one. Cincinnati dropped a heartbreaker against Pittsburgh as they had a really good lead in Cincinnati in week two. Kansas obviously has not met expectations. Jalen Daniels has been struggling 2 weeks in a row, throwing 3 interceptions against Illinois and 2 interceptions against UNLV. It's not as surprising to see Kansas as an underdog to West Virginia, but they're kind of in the similar position where West Virginia is trying to find their groove again. They really, having a home game back in Morgantown is going to be really beneficial for them. They suffered a heartbreaker against Pittsburgh. So how ironic that two of these Big 12 teams suffered these hard L's to a young Pitt team and Eli Holston leading those second quarter or second half comebacks. But personally, I gravitate towards Cincinnati bouncing back. I do like their team. I feel like they have a very, very talented and bought-in defense. And same with Kansas. I think they will be able to capitalize on playing more of a lesser opponent. I know Morgantown is a hostile environment. Everyone is going to be devoted to how that game goes, and it's going to be crazy to see. So in my morning slate, I'll definitely have 4 games, 4 screens up, just watching how these Big 12 games end up shaking out. But we go into prime time around 12:30 and 1 o'clock where these games get interesting. Yeah, we could talk Iowa State hosting Arkansas State, but I'm done with the Cyclones. They need to play a Big 12 opponent, and I'm tired of overrating them as a top 6 upper half Big 12 team until they actually play a formidable Big 12 opponent. So right now we have 12:30. Our ASU Sun Devils are going to Lubbock, Texas, at Cody Campbell Field, playing a Texas Tech team that is very hungry. Tech had won by 1 point to Abilene Christian and lost 37-16 to Washington State. So this team has definitely been off the wrong foot in the beginning of their season, but they definitely handled against North Texas in a 66-21 win. So that'll be a very interesting game. I cannot wait for the FS1 coverage on that. But the actual big noon Saturday, when you get out of the Ohio State Marshall game, when it's big noon for us, and it's actually going to be 1 o'clock for us, we have a great game in Utah versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's always a hostile environment playing in Stillwater, but I really like to see how the old Alan Bowman plays the old Cameron Rising. I saw a really funny graphic that the combined ages of these guys is 49 years old. Alan Bowman's 25 and Cameron Rising is 24. So who is going to establish their run game the most? That is pretty much the depending factor on which team will perform the best. For me, I gravitate towards Oklahoma State handling this just because of the unfamiliarity with Cameron Rising with his offense. He struggled a little bit, but ultimately had a very bad injury against Baylor. Hurt his wrist when it was kind of a dirty play by the Baylor defender pushing him out into the water jug. But he hurt his wrist. Then we had Isaac Wilson come in, and I feel like Isaac Wilson is kind of a dud. I don't believe in him as a quarterback. I feel like Utah State beat themselves. Their lack of execution really prevented them from having some sort of success in the Battle of the Brothers last week. But Isaac Wilson went scoreless against Baylor in the second half, and that pretty much contributes to my opinion of him and how slow this offense can be. I think Utah will end up losing to Oklahoma State. I think the Cowboys will reinforce their dominance in the Big 12. And again, I am so excited to play them for Hollow Weekend. And then we go straight into a really good, entertaining game in TCU versus SMU. Both of these teams have something to prove. SMU struggled against BYU. They lost 18-15. And, I really thought SMU would have snuck out with that game in week 2. But they're off a bye week. They didn't play last week, and now they're hosting the TCU Horned Frogs, and that's pretty much why SMU is favored to win right now. You're going to Southern Methodist. It's kind of like the Dallas of DFW. Which team is the best Dallas-Fort Worth team? And this will determine it. And it's a really interesting coverage because it's on the CW network, and I haven't seen a college football game being featured on this channel platform yet. So I'll definitely have my eyes open for that game. But again, TCU just dropping the very bad loss to UCF, letting RJ Harvey completely run all over them. And they played amazing. I was very impressed to see what Josh Hoover was doing. He got the ball in his playmaker's hands, but also delivered. Josh Peck is a really good wide receiver. I can't wait to see what he does. And Savion Williams as well is a great wide receiver. I'm thankful that ASU isn't playing TCU this year because I think they are probably one of the more formidable opponents with the talent on both sides of the ball. They do have an identity. I just think Sonny Dykes became overwhelmed. They only scored 2 field goals from the 10-minute mark of the third quarter to the entire fourth quarter. So obviously when they were up 28-7, the game ended up being 34-35. UCF just scored 4 touchdowns in that second half, completely blowing the socks off for the Horned Frogs on their family weekend. It was a hard to watch game. I felt bad for TCU, but you can only feel better for UCF and what kind of momentum they're gaining. I still don't believe in KJ Jefferson, but I do believe in RJ Harvey. So UCF is going to be a great game. Now, for an afternoon game, the media coverage is going to be all over this one because it's the one and only Colorado Buffaloes, coached by Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. And right now, Colorado is finally getting their feet wet, being a little bit more consistent. Can't wait to see what they do against a Baylor Bears team. Baylor is you can't devalue Baylor. They're always going to come out strong. They have a good coach. I like to believe that their head coach is legit, but he does lack a little bit of execution. Maybe their program isn't as bought in as they used to be, 4 or 5 years ago when the Baylor Bears were legit. But Colorado hosting this one, I really like Colorado. I do. They gotta get a good Big 12 win under their belt. They gotta have some more confidence going into this season. It was really deflating when they lost to Nebraska and completely getting blown out, manhandled by Nebraska's offensive line and Dylan Raiola throwing wherever he wanted. But what I need to see from this Buffaloes team is an actual strategic game plan. They need to get the ball to their amazing wide receiver core, and not in a way where it's short passing, play action. No, you need to actually give these guys a route tree. You need to scheme them right. And what I've seen so far is a lack of execution, but more importantly, an inefficient game plan in all of these games. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter they're the most talented players in college football. I mean, Shedeur is going to be a top 20 draft pick, and Travis could be a top 20 draft pick. But as of right now, their game plans struggle a lot. You see a lack of inefficiency or a lack of efficiency, a lot of inefficiency. And, they are a struggling team on defense. They're still trying to piece together their run stopping, but I do like Colorado escaping out of this one. They really got to start off 3-1. They got to have some more momentum going into the Big 12. And then my favorite game for the nighttime is Kansas State playing BYU. The reason why I think it's one of my favorite games is because playing in Provo is a sneaky matchup. Going to BYU, it's like the Mormon town. It's hard to compete in that place. And everyone's going to be wearing white, going to be so polite. But no, Kansas State Wildcats, I know you got whatever you wanted against U of A. And first ever Big 12 matchup for U of A. They got blown out. They got absolutely blown out in that second half. It was hard to watch. But the battle of the Wildcats of no more, Kansas State is looking like they can represent the Big 12. But again, I still see features of their team that look very beatable. But I am a big believer in Dylan Edwards, DJ Giddens. Their running back room is very good. I think it competes well with our ASU running back room and being that top 3. But I do like Avery Johnson. He's very visibly young. He's just a young 19-year-old. Can't wait to see what he can do athletically, but his decision making obviously might throw them out of games. We'll see though. BYU can completely lay down and give Kansas State another dominant win, just kind of giving the influence that Kansas State is the representation of the Big 12. But in my honest opinion, every team looks beatable right now except for ASU. If ASU does beat Tech, we would have a 4-0 start. I think we'd undoubtedly be a top 25 team, and nationally we would get covered and noticed a lot more. But as of right now, who would I say my power rankings for the top 4 is? I'd probably go Kansas State, ASU. I still like TCU. They dropped a really bad game to UCF, but they look like a great team. So I like TCU at 3. And then 4, I would probably end up going Oklahoma State. Because Oklahoma State did struggle against Arkansas. They looked beatable. And I feel like the problem with these Kansas State and Oklahoma State games is they're going to be playing opponents that might make them look better than they are. I genuinely think Utah is going to lose on Saturday. There's no way they go into Stillwater and win. And yeah, Kansas State could be knocked off in an upset in Provo, but look, BYU might just make them look like the second coming of a great team, and that's exactly what U of A did. U of A made Kansas State look better than they were, and that's why I was always adamant that U of A would end up being a bottom half 6 or a bottom half Big 12 team. But at this day and age, it's not about the players anymore. You can't evaluate a team just simply by who has the most talent. It is all about the established identity, and that is why UCF came back last Saturday, because they reestablished their identity of using RJ Harvey and running with him no matter what. And that's what Kansas needs to do as well. They need to establish their identity of just being Devin Neal or nothing. So right now, these running backs are definitely running the Big 12. It's really fun football to watch. Great defenses and then amazing running games. I can't wait to see what happens for the rest of this year, but more importantly, this is just week 1 of Big 12 matchups. Iowa State, you need to join the conversation. You can't just beat Iowa and be given the top half rating of being a good, formidable Big 12 team. You haven't done anything in the Big 12 yet. So, enjoy your Arkansas State game. Good luck to you guys, but real deal starts next week for them. TCU, I'll give you guys that. It's a DFW rivalry. I can't wait to see what happens. I like SMU to come back off of a bye week, but I also do like TCU to let out some of their frustrations from last week. So, again, make sure to tune in on these Big 12 games. The conference to watch for sure. I feel confident that we'll put up at least 3 teams in the college football playoff bracket this year, but if it ends up being 2 teams, I really hope it's our Sun Devils, and most likely it'll be the Cowboys, but we'll see. But this is your Big 12 breakdown presented by Trevenchy, and make sure to check out more of our content with the 480 experience. Thanks for watching.